Alright, in this video I want to talk about flat earth, and it's kind of interesting how things kind of work out. Just a day or so ago I had a comment on my video that had nothing to do with the flat earth from somebody just going on about the flat earth. And I talked to him about, hey, what does this have to do with my video? I mean, I have videos about the flat earth if that's what you want to talk about, so you can leave a comment there. Like, what's going on? The person never responded or anything, but just I think this morning here, my wife ended up showing me a quick TikTok that she saw about a debate between, let me look here real quick, Dean Odell and Greg Locke, and it was just like, I guess, the closing moments about they were kind of butting heads, and it ended. And I was like, hey, I want to check out that debate. So we started watching it, but it took a minute to find it. Yeah, since I've given you a bit of background on why I'm talking about the flat earth right now, I'm going to talk about it a little bit. And while actually listening to the start of this debate, it started off differently. I've seen a few debates, and the debates always start off with one side giving their opening arguments, and then the other side giving their opening arguments. Then the other side gives a rebuttal to the other side's opening arguments, and then the other side gives their rebuttal to the other side's opening arguments. And then they'll have that usually back and forth for a little bit. At the end, they might sit there and ask each other some questions. Then they might, at the end, ask the audience to ask some questions. But this one started off with them sitting together and already arguing. And during it, my wife said, hey, look, that guy's changing his posture to look exactly like the other guys, like he's mirroring them. And I was like, interesting. Because I was saying, hey, I think what's going on here is that the guy who's hosting the debate, who doesn't believe the earth is flat, he's trying to irritate the other guy to get him to just leave or something, or trying to make him respond irrationally or emotionally to make him look bad or look like a fool of some kind. Because I think once they actually get into the debate, he's going to be revealed as he doesn't know what he's talking about. And that's when my wife noticed, hey, he's actually mirroring him. And I was like, yeah, that's NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, something I learned about as a Seventh-day Adventist, because Seventh-day Adventism, they teach their pastors NLP, which you think would give you a red flag that, hey, you're doing something wrong here because you're not winning people over by reasoning with them and letting them make a free choice. You're using a form of hypnosis to try to manipulate them into making a choice they normally wouldn't make. And part of the NLP is to mirror the other person. And it starts by standing the way they stand, putting your feet pointing in the same way they're pointing, your hands in the same way, but you do it the opposite, like a mirror. So if they have their left hand on their hip, you would put your right hand on your hip. So when they're looking at, they start to have this subconscious view that they're looking in a mirror, and you start to try to mimic them so that you're getting into the subconscious to make it look like they're looking at themselves. And this is to subconsciously win them over, even though they don't know you, to make it seem as though you are such a friend that you are just like themselves, right? That you're that close to them. And then you start to mimic their mannerisms of speech and stuff, and you start to talk like them the best you can, and that's part of the NLP, is you are mimicking them so that you can subconsciously try to get them to think of you as a friend, and hopefully you want to get them to think of you as themselves. So then you can start putting in ideas in their head that they normally wouldn't even accept, right? Like 2 + 2 is 5. You start putting that idea into their head where they're not going to listen to some stranger on the street say that, but when they themselves or a really good friend tells them that, they might hear them out and they actually entertain the idea that 2 plus 2 could be actually 5, right? So I thought that was strange. Like, yeah, that's exactly what the people who use NLP do. They do this mimicking, this mirroring. And the way that I have described it before is if you're trying to break a wild horse, what you would end up doing is you go out on your horse that is already broken in and you chase down one of the wild Mustangs out there and you match the pace of that Mustang. So that's your mirroring. You're mirroring that Mustang. So you're appearing like you're one of the herd kind of thing, right? You're just like that other horse running. But then you take the lasso, you throw it around that Mustang, and this is a depiction of now you're becoming friends, right? Because you pull that Mustang close to your horse, right? Real close, like friends are close, and then you change the pace. You slow things down. You start to take control, right? But that Mustang doesn't want to do that. But you using the manipulation of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, to manipulate the wild Mustang into doing so. Then you bring that Mustang into the corral, and that's where you break the wild Mustang to domesticate it, right? And that would be in the case of like the Seventh-day Adventists, it would be into their church, or like the Jehovah's Witnesses, the Mormons, and many of these other Christian sects. They use this manipulation tactic to get you into the corral, and then that's when they break you to make you one of them and make you one of the domesticated Christians that they can get guys out of that support them and they can make use out of you, right? And he was actually trying to use that on what's the fellow's name again? Dean something. And I was like that, and I could see that the guy who was preaching the flat Earth was getting a bit annoyed with him, and I was getting a bit annoyed. I was like, hey, let's get to the actual debate. I want to hear this stuff. And one of the main reasons why I wanted to make the video was not just talk about the manipulation tactics at the beginning, but a very key point, very important point, because a lot of Christians that I talk to, like YouTube channel Born Again Barbarian, I talked to that guy, what's his name, Brian? I think that's his name. That they don't think it's a big deal. Like, what does it matter if you believe it's a sphere or it's flat? And then he'll turn around and say that the flat Earth is a demonic deception, right? So it's like you say it doesn't matter, but then you say it's a demonic deception. That matters, right? So kind of going forked tongue. He was bringing up the point when he finally was getting into the debate. The guy on the side of the flat Earth was talking about how there's a lot of atheists who've gotten into this study to mock the people who believe the flat Earth, so that in doing so, to study this whole spherical Earth versus the flat Earth, they end up seeing that it's wrong to believe that the Earth's a sphere, and then they believe that, hey, it is flat, and this actually gets them to believe the Bible, and then leads them to Jesus, right? That never happens when you're teaching the spherical Earth. Matter of fact, he was showing how it's the atheists that support this model because it's a way to get away from God. Believe in this Big Bang that nothing, right? Nothing exploded. How that happened is beyond me, right? It takes a lot of faith to believe that nothing exploded and became everything we see now, right? This is an atheistic point of view that just everything came by chance. It's just random chaos. It's what they believe to get rid of God. And there's actually a lot of people, because of science, namely the young people, who go away from God and go away from the Bible because they think it's a joke because it's not scientific. But they don't realize that they're actually believing a lie. They never actually study both sides. They're taught one way, and that's what they think is right. That's why if I ever bring up the flat Earth to somebody, they never say why. They just laugh and think, okay, you're an idiot, and they usually don't want to talk about it. When you think, like if somebody believes that, hey, you believe the Earth's a cube? my first thing is like, why do you believe that? I want to know what made you think that, right? I'm not going to laugh at it until they tell me why they believe it. And if they say they believe it just because they want to, be like, okay, well, that's all right, your thing. You can believe what you want, have faith in whatever you want to have faith in, and that's that, right? But I liked how he was showing this, and he was showing that there was a lot of atheists that studied this, and it actually led them to Jesus. And I have my own testimony that this is not what led me to Jesus, but I became a flat earther the same way. I heard people talking about the flat earth, and I was like, what? No. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to prove that it's a sphere. I wasn't going to disprove that it was flat. I was just going to go look at the science, and I was going to provide the evidence showing that it's a sphere. And I went to look at it and started with, I can't remember the guy's name, but he did an experiment in Egypt where the sun was coming down into this tunnel like a well, and he was looking at the shadow that, hey, the sun is directly above here, and then 500 miles away at that same time, he could see that the shadow angle, that it was different, and he determined that's because the earth is curved. I was like, there, see, you proved that the earth is spherical. But there's a problem. On a flat earth, if the sun is closer, you get the same result. So I was like, okay, that doesn't prove it's a sphere. All right. And then there's this pendulum, right, that shows that the earth is spinning. And it's supposed to spin determined by the earth moving. I can't remember the name, Fulcrum's pendulum or something like that. Yet, when you look into this, when you let it start on its own, it ends up swinging and spinning whatever way, right? It's kind of random. So they have to start it manually, and once they start it manually or with a machine, it actually has the continual motion, and then they use that to prove that the Earth's spinning. So I was like, okay, well, I can't prove that there. I was like, oh, well, why don't I use NASA? I love the pictures. And then come to find out, they even admit that their pictures are either computer generated or artwork of some kind. They're not actual genuine pictures. I was like, well, if you go up to the space station, why don't you just take some pictures right now? Or if you've been to the moon, why don't you take some pictures there? Or so on and so forth, right? And then thinking about those things, like we take a picture of the moon from Earth, and the Earth is supposed to be larger than the moon, right? And then they supposedly, on the moon mission, on the moon, they took a picture of the Earth, and the Earth is about the size of the moon in the same scale that it looks like when you're on the Earth looking at the moon. So it didn't make sense. The Earth should appear a lot bigger. And it was those kind of things that'd be like, well, I don't have anything that proves that the Earth's a sphere. I got nothing. And that's what got me to look at, okay, well, why do they believe it's flat? Let me take a look at what they got. And then while looking at it all, I was like, whoa. And I started thinking about the things like, they'll talk about like a ship going over the horizon. Like, look, it's going over the curve. No, it's not. You can do this experiment on a football field. You can go to your high school or college field there, or if you've got some other kind of field that's flat like that, some soccer field of some kind, you can go there. You can put a camera down on the ground, maybe a little bit higher, put it on like a little tripod or something. There's people who have done this. You put it at like one end zone if you're on a football field, and you walk away from the camera, and you can see that as you walk away, you're still on the flat plane on the football field, but you'll see that the feet start to disappear, then the knee, then the hips, and it looks like he's going down over a curve like a ship, but he's not. And then he can eventually just crouch down, and it looks like he's not even there anymore. But he's on the same level as the camera, but the perspective, it looks like he's not, because there's only a limited vision that the human eye or even a camera can see. And when things get too far away, they start to appear as if they're shrinking, they're going down, if they're on the same level that we're at, right? And it made me think, yeah, that makes sense, because if you ever watch a car go over a hill, like if you're on the top of the hill and you see it go down the hill, its front end goes down and its back end goes up because it's going over a curve. But when you watch these ships go over the curve, they shrink down as if they're going down an elevator, perfectly straight. You don't see the front of the ship dip down and then the rear of the ship go up as if it's going over a curve. No, it stays flat and it just kind of shrinks straight down. And it was these things, there's other things, that led me to see that the earth was flat and it wasn't moving. Such as I heard some people say, oh, yeah, the snipers. Because I was pretty fresh out of the army when I was learning this stuff. Snipers have to calculate for spin of the earth, and the curvature. And I was like, no, they don't. The only thing you learn while shooting is Kentucky windage. And that's it, right? Because on a distance and with the wind, your bullet may go left or right generally, depending on the wind. Of course, there's drop where it's going to go down. So you may have to aim a little bit higher, a little bit to the left or right, not because there's any curve, because that's just what happens, right? Because if there was actually motion or movement or a curve, when I was in the 101st Airborne where we did things with the helicopters. The helicopter would hover just like a couple feet off the ground so that we can get in and out of the helicopter. If the earth was spinning, then the earth would move from underneath the helicopter. And the buildings and trees that were around it would crash into that helicopter. So this nonsense that the earth is moving, that became just blatantly obvious that no, that's not what's going on. And then it built my faith in the Bible, where I believed what it said when it said things. Like in Joshua, it says that the sun and the moon stood still. I was like, okay, that's what happened. The earth didn't stood still. The earth, as the Bible says, is immovable. It was the sun and the moon stood still. Because if the earth stopped moving, and the earth is moving at 1,000 miles an hour, and all of a sudden the earth stopped moving, you would have massive tidal waves that would have destroyed the world. And then if the earth started moving again, going 0 to 1,000 miles an hour again, as it sped up, it would have caused tsunamis again. Make sure that the earth was destroyed. So when the Bible says that it was the sun and the moon stood still, that's what happened. The earth didn't stop moving because it's not moving. The sun and the moon, they stopped. And to wrap this up, I wanted to focus on the point that when people study this, it leads them to God. It leads them to trust in the Word of God. It leads them to Jesus. You can't say that about the Big Bang and the spherical earth and the spinning earth. Matter of fact, it leads people into atheism and hardens them in atheism. So that's why this does matter. Fallen angels are going to return. But they're going to say, what? We're aliens. And if you believe the earth is a spinning ball going through space, you will believe in the nonsense that these fallen angels are aliens. And they're here to help us. But if you know the truth that the earth is flat, then you know that these beings are not aliens. They're fallen angels. And they're here to deceive you. Not save you from them yourselves, but to take over and to unite you to fight against the coming King, Jesus Christ. So that's another reason why this is actually important. I think it's weird that these people who say it's not important, doesn't matter if you believe it's a sphere or flat, they're the same ones to say that this is a demonic deception. It's like, hey, I thought it didn't matter. But here we are. So I just wanted to get this off my chest. Thanks for hearing me out. Thanks for watching. Take care.
Don't waste any more time. Visit the links above now and order my book, 16 Emergency Landings Proving Flat Earth. Visit my online store now and order the new enhanced Gleason's Flat Earth map. This map used to be in every school and library in the nation before NASA was created in 1958, when the maps were ordered removed. Have your Gleason's map hanging on the wall in your house where no government can take it down. Here you see it hanging on a wall in the house of the late Charles K. Johnson. Here is a quote from the book 1984 by George Orwell. Every record has been destroyed or falsified, every book rewritten, every picture has been repainted, every statue and street building has been renamed, every date has been altered, and the process is continuing day by day and minute by minute. History has stopped. Order your map now.